Hey guys, Grant here with Gamertainment. 1 week late, Better Call Saul, episode 3. Review, discussion. Let's do it. So we start off this episode of Better Call Saul with a flashback. Flashback of Saul in prison. And we learn a little bit more about Chuck. Well, I did anyway. I don't know if it was already revealed, but Chuck is Saul's brother of all people, which is interesting. And he's a lawyer when Saul is not. Saul's in prison, so Chuck comes in, hasn't seen Saul in 5 years, and he's there to bail him out. He doesn't want to bail him out at first, but Saul kind of pleads with him a bit, and that's where we end up. Believe it or not, Saul is in there because he's being charged with being a sex offender or something along those lines. They don't explain what the specifics are of the charge, but that's what imagination's for. So the flashback ends and we're back into present day of the episode. And Saul's having a hard time sleeping, so he calls up the woman whose name is currently escaping me, who works at his competitor's law firm there, the ones he hates, Chuck's law firm. The ones that he's kind of in constant battle with about the money and Chuck and all that fun stuff. Anyway, he's talking to her, and it seems like he's trying to get some information about the Kettlemans and their money, but he ends up letting it slide, maybe out of guilt, that the Kettlemans are, in a little bit of danger right now, and she kind of reacts as you would expect. She kind of just asks a couple questions about it. But Saul really has to backtrack from this because he can't let her know that he knows the Kettlemans are in danger. He just blames it on himself being drunk. This is actually really interesting here because we learn that Saul kind of has a close relationship, or had a close relationship, with this woman. And it kind of showed them as enemies in the beginning, but now he's getting information from her, talking to her like they're friends, or like I said, used to be friends or something. What follows is actually hilarious in my mind. Saul takes a tube from the inside of a roll of paper towel, takes like a piece of paper, ties it around the bottom of the tube to try to mask his voice, and it's great because you can't understand a word that he's saying when he speaks through it. He goes to a payphone out in the middle of nowhere, calls the Kettlemans, which I don't know, I didn't see him doing that, but he calls the Kettlemans, and he has to make multiple attempts here to try to tell them, Kettlemans, you're in danger. And it's funny because they're like, what's going on? We can't understand you. But he eventually just kind of throws the tube away and says it with his own voice, and yeah. By the way, I just have to make a quick note that the Kettlemans voicemail message is just great. It is hilarious. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it's like their whole family speaking in it, and it's just super corny and just super bad, but in the best way possible for the show. So the next scene we have is Saul is back in court. He's in the bathroom where he usually tries to make his deals with whoever he's against. And it still really shows that Saul he's still caring. He really is trying to do his best to win, and he's fighting hard for whoever he represents. That's still continuing, and I'm waiting for the episode when that might stop, when his ambitions, he might not care as much when he becomes the guy representing criminals. Or maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he'll continue to be a great lawyer, or it's tough to predict, but that's just the way I think it's going to go. So Saul gets a call, and you can't hear the voice on the other line, but he's freaking out about the call, and we learn it's about the Kettlemans. And there's a great little follow-up scene here with him leaving with Mike at the gate, which I still love. All these scenes with Mike at the gate, I think they're awesome. But basically, he's not going to have the stickers. He never has the stickers, which is also a great reoccurring thing in all these episodes, his little fights about stickers. But this time, he kind of takes it a step further, and he reaches in and hits the button and drives out himself. And Mike just, that face he has when Saul drives away, Mike looks pissed. So Saul shows up at the Kettlemans' house to find it swarming with police. Kettlemans nowhere to be found. They were in danger apparently. he might have been right. So not much to say about that scene in particular. Like, it was important. I mean, he found out they were gone. It sets up the arc for the rest of the episode and maybe the next couple episodes to come, depending on what happens here. But what happens after that scene is really something I enjoyed this episode. I thought it was a strong point, and that was Saul at the payphone. He goes to the payphone, and he thinks that it's Nacho. That's the guy's name, who is Tuco's buddy or whatever, who wanted to rip off the Kettlemans. He thinks Nacho robbed them or took their money. He's holding them captive. So he leaves a series of just really funny voicemails, without being super direct about who he is, to Nacho to try to get in contact with him, and keeps repeating the number of the payphone for him to call back on, and it's great. So he does this for a while, and a lot of time goes by, and I was slightly confused about when the two guys started walking from opposite directions of the sidewalk towards Saul's car. I thought it might have been people who worked for Nacho, but turns out it was police. Where's the logic there? I don't know. It ends up they were looking for Nacho's lawyer, which is Saul, but it was just a weird way to present it when they looked like they were, they didn't look like they're clearly undercover cops, but still something a little bit off about the way that went down. So Saul gets dragged back to the police station where he gets to sit down with Nacho and talk to him. At this point, he still assumes that Nacho did indeed take the Kettlemans. And Nacho is just mad because Nacho explains he didn't take the Kettlemans, but he thinks Saul arranged for someone else to do it. Basically meaning that Saul stole his job. Saul was just going to rip him off and take the money, take his idea, and Nacho gives a warning. He basically says, "You get me out of here today, or you're dead. Someone's gonna kill you." So that's your options there, Saul. So now they've got the lawyer of the Kettlemans, the woman who was friends with Saul, and these two police who are trying to get Saul to give them some information of where Nacho may have taken the Kettlemans, where they could be, because they still think, obviously, that he did this. They had witnesses with seeing Nacho's van outside of the Kettleman's home, license plate matching, blood in the van, which turns out was Saul's fault as well, because it was from the two skateboarding guys from the other episode when their legs were broke. So Saul is now gotta, find out what really happened to the Kettlemans, or he's dead. So the police take Saul back to the Kettleman's house, and Saul actually determines from looking around the house that the Kettlemans, he kind of thinks that they took themselves. He sees that the doll is missing in the little girl's room, and that, if it was Nacho, that he wouldn't really let the girl take the doll. The police think, maybe he could have. Anyway, smart writing here. I love how, there's valid arguments for both the theory of the cops, there's valid arguments for Saul's theory, and it just works. Two theories, valid points for each one. We still don't know. As an audience, I still didn't know really what happened to the Kettlemans. Didn't know if they took themselves. Strong possibility, but I was still open that someone could have taken their money. It was kind of difficult to tell at that point. So next we get the turning point of the character of Mike, which I've been waiting for since the very first episode, even though I've enjoyed his work so far. So Saul goes back to the court or the jail or wherever it is, wherever he has to park, where Mike works. And from earlier we knew that it wasn't going to turn out so well, because Saul kind of just gypped him and went through without, paying. So Mike was pissed. And a little physical altercation happens. Saul kind of goes to hit Mike, and Mike kind of, shows him who's boss, because Mike is a better fighter than Saul would be. And we find out why in a couple seconds. So Mike is ready to press charges for assault on Saul. And the same two police who are trying to find out where the Kettlemans are trying to make some kind of deal where the assault charges will be dropped if Saul gives them the information. And once Mike hears Saul's theory, he believes him. Mike thinks Saul is right, and he just says, "Not pressing charges," walks away. It was kind of confusing at that point, but we get the explanation followed up pretty quickly. As Saul chases after Mike, asks him why. Turns out Mike used to be a cop. I I didn't remember that Mike was a cop, but it's kind of vaguely familiar, so I'm assuming that you knew that already. So Mike was a police. Mike heard the story and he said, "Yeah, yeah, Saul's pretty much right. Maybe Saul should be a cop, not a lawyer." Anyway, um, yeah, and what's bigger here though is Mike actually helps Saul in finding out where the Kettlemans are. He gives him some advice and says, people who steal money and run away or are hiding themselves usually stick very close to home. He gives an example, and Saul gets thinking that maybe the Kettlemans are hiding close to their house. Saul heads out. He goes to the Kettlemans' house. He goes through their backyard, walks through the convenient desert right behind their backyard. It looks like he walks for a long time. 'Cause when he starts, it's daytime. When he stops, it's nighttime. And he hears the Kettlemans singing through the woods. He follows the singing, ends up at their tent, and the way he reveals himself by just ripping it open and saying something loudly was pretty cool. I liked that a lot. So he finds the Kettlemans. The children want to go home. Obviously, the Kettlemans are like, no, we're staying. They start fighting over the bag. Saul's pulling one end, and the Kettlemans are pulling the other end. And what happens next is just epic and was the perfect way to end this episode. The bag explodes, the 1.5 million falls over the ground, and Saul just kind of goes, oh, oh. What happens next? My predictions here. Saul's going to make one or two ways it's going to go. I don't think he's going to turn them in. He's either going to make a deal with them to take a certain amount of the money, or Saul might just rip them off completely. But either way, I think he's in trouble with Nacho unless he takes the money for Nacho. So we'll see which way that goes. But back to this episode for 1 second. So the fact that Mike revealed where the Kettlemans were, gave him the information that led to finding them, was really cool. It kind of lets you know what role Mike might play in the future once Saul gets into his shady lawyer business. Maybe Mike will be some kind of consultant, advisor, helper, partner in this crime kind of stuff. Because you got the lawyer, you got the cop, you got two different kinds of information that might be needed for Saul to do this business. And the other thing is just I don't know. He found the Kettlemans a little bit too easy. He walked a really long distance, not really on a set path, and stumbled upon them somehow. I don't know. Maybe they just walked in the most obvious direction possible, and he kind of just followed his instincts, which is what their instincts would have been. But it's still a bit. It works. It works. He found them. It's great. Mike helped them. It works. It completes the episode. But anyway, overall, I thought this was another solid episode of Better Call Saul. I'm not sure I liked it better than the second one. It was missing some of that stuff that the second one had, but it was good in its own right. Still better than the first, which is always going to be the worst one because it was setting up the show, and I'm going to stop talking about that one in the future because it just doesn't even make sense to mention it. But it was solid, and the story really ended in a cliffhanger where I think the show is just going to take off even further than it already has. So that was my discussion on Better Call Saul. I'm Grant. This is Gamertainment. Thank you for watching. If you have any thoughts or you want to talk about these episodes in the future with me, leave a comment, leave a name, leave a like, send a message, do all those cool things. And I'll see you guys next time, which is going to be like soon because the next episode comes on tonight. I was really late on this episode. I apologize. Anyway, peace.